Here's a question you're about to get wrong. What is the most watched event in human history? Not the moon landing, not a coronation, not an election, not a war. It's a game. 1.5 billion people watched the last World Cup final, at the same time facing the same point on the planet. And the thing they were watching needs no stadium, no equipment, no money, and no language. A ball, open ground, people, that's the entire machine. Because this simple game is about to explain some very strange things. Why grown men hang effigies over a red card. Why a stadium can kill without a single punch being thrown. And why this month the most powerful man on earth picked up a phone over a red piece of cardboard. Start with why it spread, because the answer is built into the object. Every sport charges an entry fee. Cricket wants a groom strip and a bag full of gear. American football wants pads, helmets, and 22 specialists. Basketball wants a hoop bolted to something and ground flat enough to bounce on. Football wants a sphere, and the sphere can be rags. Pelé learned on a grapefruit and a sock stuffed with newspaper. Maradona learned on the dirt lots of Villa Fiorito. Poverty has never been a wall around this game. For a century, poverty was the pipeline. Second, a child learns the rules in about a minute. Ball in the net, goal. There's exactly one complicated rule, and even the referees argue about it. Third, and this is the clever part, football is stingy. It is the lowest scoring major sport on the planet, and that is not a flaw. It's the engine. Goals are rare, so each one detonates. Rarity is the same reward scheduling that keeps a gambler at a slot machine. The payoff might come any second, so you cannot look away. A 0-0 match can be 90 minutes of ecstasy that never arrives, and the crowd stays because it might. Fourth, no game betrays its own script more often. Draws exist. Giants fall to part-timers. One deflection can rewrite a nation's entire week. Hope is never mathematically dead in football, which means no fan is ever released. And it all runs in one unbroken river. 45 minutes, no timeouts, no ad breaks, no committee huddles. Nothing else left in modern life holds this many human beings in one continuous trance. Add it up and you get numbers that stop being sports numbers. FIFA has 211 member associations. The United Nations has 193 member states. The game is organized in more places than world politics can reach. Roughly 270 million people are registered players, coaches, or referees, and around 5 billion engage with the last World Cup. That is not a sports footprint. That's a civilization's. The machine got its blueprint in a London tavern in 1863. One rule book, so strangers could play strangers, and one rule book meant the game could travel without translation. Sailors carried it. Railway men carried it. Everywhere the empire sent ships and rails, the ball rolled off with the cargo. And unlike the cargo, it belonged to whoever picked it up. Then came the twist the empire didn't order. The colonized got better at the empire's game than the empire. Uruguay won the first World Cup in 1930. Brazil turned the game into an art form its inventors couldn't imitate. The ball became the one arena where the map's losers could beat the map's winners. In public, with witnesses. And every ruler on earth took the same note. The fastest road into a population's heart is 11 of its sons in national colors. By the time television arrived, football wasn't spreading like a sport anymore. It was spreading like a belief system. Which raises the real question, what does it do to the believer? Start inside the body, yours. You're on a sofa, watching, and you'd swear you're doing nothing. Your heart disagrees. Germany, World Cup, 2006. Doctors in Munich counted cardiac emergencies across the whole tournament. On days the German team played, they more than doubled, 2.7 times the normal rate. The spikes were worse during the closest matches, and worst of all, during penalty shootouts. And whenever Germany wasn't playing, the rate sat right back at normal. Read that again. The tournament wasn't the stressor, caring was. England, 1998, the night they lost to Argentina on penalties. Heart attack admissions across the country rose 25%. That day and the 2 days after, no rise in any other diagnosis, no rise after England's calmer games. The Netherlands measured the same thing after a shootout exit, excess cardiac deaths among men that same day. And it runs deeper than stress. Researchers sampled male fans before and after a big match. The winner's testosterone rose about 20%. The losers fell. These men hadn't touched the ball. Their endocrine systems had played anyway. Somewhere very old in the body, there is no difference between the tribe's battle and your own. Honesty requires a footnote. Pool every country together, and some analyses find no effect at all. Where football is just a pastime, hearts stay calm. The spike lives where the caring is total, which is itself the finding. Football doesn't strain the heart, belonging does. 1976. A psychologist starts counting what students wear on Mondays. After their university's team wins, jerseys everywhere. After a loss, the jerseys vanish. And listen to the language. Wins are, we won. Losses are, they lost. 2 letters. That's the size of the door between you and a tribe. Psychologists call it basking in reflected glory. And before you smile, you do it. Everyone does. Here's the unsettling part. The tribe doesn't even need a reason. In the lab, sort strangers into groups by a literal coin flip, and within minutes they favor their own and shortchange the others. That's what a minimal group can do. Football is the maximal group, assigned at birth by father, street, city, and class, rehearsed every week, in uniform, with songs, and the nearer the enemy, the hotter it burns. The fiercest hatreds in this game aren't between distant countries. They're between neighborhoods, same city, same jobs, same weather. The rage needs the difference to be small because the difference is the identity. But be fair to the machine, because this is also the gift. In a world that has quietly dismantled almost every room where strangers gather, the stadium is one of the last places a dock worker and a surgeon hug each other and mean it. The machine isn't malicious, it's just enormous, and it doesn't care what it's used for. And when a belonging machine gets this strong, it starts to look like something much older. Look at the structure with fresh eyes. A fixed holy day and a temple to spend it in. Fans call their grounds cathedrals, and they are not joking. Hymns, 40,000 people singing in unison with no conductor. Vestments, processions, pilgrimage, relics, saints, and excommunication. Try transferring to the rival and going home for dinner. Point by point, the architecture of worship rebuilt in concrete with floodlights. And if that sounds like a metaphor, meet the church where it isn't. Rosario, Argentina, 1998. 3 fans found the Iglesia Maradoniana, the Church of Maradona. It has its own 10 commandments, its own baptisms, a calendar that counts the years from Diego's birth. It began as a joke between friends, and then the joke acquired sacraments and congregations and members around the world. At some point, a joke with baptisms is just a religion with a sense of humor. And every religion needs a miracle. Mexico City, 1986. Quarterfinal, Argentina against England. 4 years after the 2 countries fought a war. Diego Maradona rises with the goalkeeper and punches the ball into the net. The referee sees a header. Argentina sees deliverance. Asked afterward, Maradona says the goal was scored a little with his head and a little with the hand of God. Now watch what belief does next. The same footage runs on every screen on earth, and half the world sees a crime, while a nation sees divine justice. Nobody's lying. That's the terrifying part. The tribe decides what the eyes report. 4 minutes after the hand, Maradona scored again, dribbling half of England's team. A goal routinely voted the greatest ever. Sin and grace, the same afternoon, the same man. In 2022, The shirt he wore that day sold at auction for over £7 million. And relic is the honest word. The object touched the miracle. The faith keeps living saints, too. For 20 years, the world split into two denominations, Messi or Ronaldo. And if denomination sounds too strong, go read the comment wars. People tattoo these men onto their skin. There are museums built to them. Stadiums chant their names in liturgical rhythm. It is devotion by every measurement we have, except the name we give it. And when Messi finally lifted the World Cup in 2022, whole countries described it in openly messianic terms. The prophecy completed, the debt of Diego repaid. And when the God himself died, November 2020, Argentina declared 3 days of national mourning. The casket lay at the presidential palace, and the line to pass it stretched through Buenos Aires like a lying in state, because that's what it was. Here is the pattern underneath all of it. Across the industrial world, formal religion is emptying out, and the stadium is one of the last places a secular crowd still performs synchronized ritual. Sociologists have a name for the feeling: collective effervescence, the electric loss of self that human beings used to find only in worship. We didn't stop being religious, we changed denominations. But every faith has a shadow. Because if winning feels like salvation, what does losing feel like? England, 1998. A 23-year-old is sent off in a World Cup match his country then loses on penalties. By morning, he is hanging in effigy outside a London pub. A newspaper prints his face as a dartboard. David Beckham needed years and one perfect free kick to be forgiven for a single flick of his boot. That's the standard weather of this faith. At this very World Cup, a coach whose team went out has received death threats. And football's own monitors have referred more than 100 abuse cases for legal action. In a religion, they'd call it heresy hunting. And for some, it follows them home. Researchers tracking one English county found reports of domestic abuse rose 26% when the national team won or drew, and 38% when it lost. Say it plainly, for some households, the scoreline is a threat forecast. The game doesn't cause that violence. It uncorks what was already in the man, which is this whole film in one line. The ball doesn't add anything to us. It reveals what's installed. And once, the weather turned fatal. Andrés Escobar, Colombia's great defender, the one they called the gentleman of football. World Cup 1994, stretching to cut out a cross, he turns the ball into his own net. Colombia, one of the tournament favorites, goes home. 10 days later, outside a Medellin nightclub, he is shot 6 times in a parking lot. Witnesses said the gunman shouted, "Goal!" as he fired. You may have heard the legend that a drug cartel ordered the hit over gambling losses. The court record tells it smaller and worse. A drunken confrontation, a man mocked about a football match, and a bodyguard with a gun. No conspiracy required, just an own goal, wounded pride, and a weapon. 120,000 people came to his funeral. He was 27. Even nations aren't immune. In 1969, El Salvador and Honduras went to actual war within weeks of riots around their World Cup qualifiers. 100 hours, thousands dead. The game didn't load the powder, land and hunger did that. But it was the one spark guaranteed to reach the whole population at once. One more thing the ball reveals: what a crowd actually is. Not a collection of decisions, a fluid. And fluids obey physics, not intentions. Lima, 1964. A goal is disallowed, police fire tear gas into the stands, and the crowd meets locked gates. Around 328 people die, the worst stadium disaster ever recorded. Brussels, 1985. A charge, a collapsing wall, 39 dead, and the match is played anyway because the show does not stop. Sheffield, 1989. 97 people crushed in fenced pens built to contain fans like a threat. Accra, 2001. 126. Port Said, 2012, 74. Kanjuruhan, Indonesia, 2022. Tear gas fired into packed stands, exits locked, 135. Now look at the pattern, because it is not the one you've been told. In almost every mass death at a football ground, the killer wasn't the mob. It was panic, plus gas, plus a locked gate. The crowd isn't a bomb, it's water. And for a century, the people who build the containers have blamed the water. Hillsborough is the proof. For 27 years, the dead were slandered as drunken hooligans, until the inquest ruled in 2016 that they were unlawfully killed by the failures of the police commanding the ground. The lie about the crowd outlived some of the survivors. Hold that thought. Institutions protecting themselves, because the institution at the top of this game has made it an art form. July the 1st, this World Cup. America's top scorer, Folarin Balogun, steps on an opponent's ankle. The referee is sent to the video monitor, watches the contact in slow motion, and shows a straight red. Under FIFA's own code, that means an automatic one-match ban, final, and unappealable. FIFA itself said so, in writing. Then the President of the United States telephoned the President of FIFA and asked him to review it. The Secretary of State publicly called the red card unfair, and 4 days later, the unappealable ban was suspended, a probationary clause. No real explanation offered. Belgium, the next opponent, called itself astonished. Its coach asked whether the 5th of July was now April Fool's Day. Now, how does the strictest rule in the world's biggest sport just bend? To answer that, you need to know who's holding it. The game's supreme authority sits in Zurich and writes the laws for 211 member associations. More members, remember, than the United Nations. On the grass, its whistle is absolute. 22 players, no appeals. Above the grass, the rules have always been softer. In 2015, American prosecutors indicted a generation of football officials in a bribery web running past $150 million. World Cup votes, television rights, marketing deals, decades of it. The president who ruled FIFA through that era, Sepp Blatter, fell, banned from the game he had governed. The organization promised a clean slate. Remember that promise. The new era expanded the product. More teams, more matches, more hosts, more inventory. And it perfected something subtler than bribery. Proximity to power. Legal. Photographed. Smiling. Which brings us back to a cracked stamp in what proximity buys. For context, you can read in public filings, FIFA's president had gifted the American president $15,000 of Club World Cup final tickets the year before. FIFA invented a peace prize and awarded him the first one at this World Cup's draw. And he is expected on stage when the trophy is handed over. None of that is hidden, and that's what's remarkable. It no longer needs to be. And if you think this is one president, one tournament, the rail runs back decades. 1962, Brazil's Garrincha is sent off in a World Cup semifinal and plays the final anyway after political pressure. Last November, Cristiano Ronaldo's red card ban conveniently deferred so he could start this World Cup. This spring, 2 more stars, 2 more bans, deferred before the tournament. The rule on the grass is iron. The rule above the grass has always carried an asterisk, unless the star is too valuable or the caller too powerful. An institution that answers to no one has a name for its rules. Suggestions. So, back to the dirt, where none of this, not one frame of it, was ever the ball's fault. 4 things to take with you. 1. The pronoun test. The day you hear yourself say, "We won," notice it. That's the machine engaging. You can love the ride and still know you're on one. 2. Your heart doesn't know it's a game. The cardiology is real. Treat a shootout like the stressor it is, especially if your doctor already has opinions about you. 3. When a crowd packs in, the danger is almost never the fans. Look for the gates and remember who locked them. And 4, when an unbreakable rule bends for a star, don't waste your breath arguing about the foul. Ask who profits from the music playing on. The ball never asked for cathedrals, or presidents, or blood. A ball, open ground, people. Everything else in this film, the worship, the weeping, the phone calls to Zurich, is what we brought to it. The game didn't make us this, it just found us this way. Old instincts, new disguises.